it's okay to become a legend after your death. It doesn't go to your head. It's a bit dangerous before that. I thank you for such a warm welcome, and especially Colin, Celine, and everybody who's responsible for having me here. But not just for having me here, but for you being prophets to us and for us. This is a collaborative, prophetic community, and we need each other. Not gay ghettos, but community of all sorts of people who seek and do co-equality and justice for everybody, irrespective. I hope everybody can hear me, and if you can't, just raise your hand and I'll go a little closer to the microphone. I start with a kind of a sentence, maybe not very profound, but I believe everything in life is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power. And nobody knows that better than my church and all institutional religion. As you know as good as I, the dialectic of power in our church and society is patriarchal heterosexuality. Therefore, women and everybody else, LGBTQI, must be controlled and subjected to straight power. As Jen so rightly said, what informs my life and this paper is my AIDS ministry. So this is not a simple talk about God, the church, and sexuality, Vatican hypocrisy, and hopes for the church. I wrote it with two objects in mind. I have tried, within the limits of my remit, to illustrate the unity of all existence, the glorious Catholicity of all life, in which our sexualities and our spiritualities form one whole and are not isolated into two separate existences. Secondly, when this is not respected, not only do we have the hypocrisy we so well know in our church, but we also have, more seriously, serious pathology in clergy and the people of God. When human communion and Holy Communion do not become one, they implode and explode. Here, therefore, with respect to you, you will find semen, blood, Holy Mass, HIV, and God. There comes a time in all of our lives, young and old, when the need for truth is so great, when the lies and distortions have made of ourselves and the selves of those we love, our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers, our lovers, and our friends. And when the things we believe in are sometimes so unrecognizable that at any cost we must go in search of our truth, simply so can we be free as human beings. For freedom, I believe, not happiness, is the precious stone. There comes a time of spiritual awakening, a time when we realize we are or have been like people who live together, but who have lost the simple ability to look one another in the eye with love. There comes a time when the need to regain that power is so great that no matter what the risk, the price, or the cost, we must regain it. We must find a reason to live, and therefore suffer any why. Although, as you know, I am indeed Irish, I have to say I didn't grow up until I went to New York, spiritually and sexually. I grew up there in the fabulous gay 70s. When AIDS hit us like a nuclear holocaust in the early 80s, I witnessed firsthand, as has been said, the decimation of an entire generation of young men in their 20s and 30s. As a priest and theological consultant to Dignity New York, the largest then known homophile group on the continental United States, I saw person after person fall prey to this unknown and ignominious disease. 600 of our membership had passed away in less than 10 years. As their brother, first of all, and then their priest, I organized the first ministry to people with AIDS in the city of New York. And very soon was brought on to Mayor Koch's task force on AIDS. My ministry at the time was not pious and was at a level anything but priestly. People with the virus were feared and ostracized in ways that are inconceivable and unimaginable today, thank God. There was no test for AIDS. People simply got sick and died. Every one of us who was gay, hemophiliac, or an IV drug user thought we had it, as there was no way whatsoever of knowing how you got it. People's lives ran wild with fear and paranoia. Those of us working with our sisters and brothers spent more time changing bed sheets and makeshift diapers for our friends than we did trying to understand and make sense of what was happening. Friends were diagnosed on a Wednesday and dead by Sunday. Hospital orderlies and nurses refused to do their job, even refusing to take food to dying patients. Many die of starvation, as those caring for them were afraid they would get it, and the food was left on trays outside their room doors. Equally, our church, with synagogues, funeral homes, closed their doors. Camus' play was reality. I flew to Ireland in the summer of 1982 to tell my parents that I would be dead by the end of the year. By the end of that year, 3 of my closest priest friends had already died. And priests I know, and I knew many of them, had the worst deaths of all. They had because of the guilt, the shame, and the total ostracization by our church. We took bodies in body bags from hospitals to crematoriums. We drank from our wells, and the water was blood. As you now know, HIV is a disease often contacted, I believe, in people's attempts to be in touch with another human being. In my experience, people contacted AIDS in trying to experience, as fellow humans, some kind of affirmation, some kind of acceptance, to know even for a moment some kind of gratification and love. This time for me was my conversion from an Irish, Ennis, naive man to the goodness and beauty of love and justice. Not only for my own community, but for straight people and all people. There was no going back. If those whose lives were lost to this plague were to have any meaning, then the love for which they lived and sought and died had to be testified and given witness to in a very misogynistic and homophobic, hostile church and society. It goes without saying, I hope, that misogyny, woman hatred, and homophobia are intrinsically linked. As I have said again and again, I do not want my freedom as a gay man until you free my sisters to be equal to every man and every woman. The Lakota Sioux Indians tell us that when life gives us a heavy burden, it also gives us a gift. Over these past 40 years of involvement with HIV, I, like many others, have, amidst all the suffering, received many gifts. It is hard to know who gives and who receives in this ministry. They give. They are the heroes. They are the ones who deserve this award from Uachtaráin Nahéireann. I am simply a representative. It is only now, as we withdraw from the front lines, that we have the opportunity to reflect on, name and celebrate some of the gifts we have received. As W.H. Auden would say, we have had the experience. Let's now find the meaning. Because in the West, HIV was first named amongst gay men, I count sexual integrity for everyone and spiritual enlightenment for everyone as being possibly one of the most profound freedoms achieved by people in this darkest winter. This gift for all people that has come to and from so many in these communities is one that both the infected and affected have bought often with their very lives. You and I, like many people in Ireland and elsewhere, grew up in a church believing with Simon and Garfunkel that God laid his hands on us all and our backs were to the wall. We swallowed whole, hook, line and sinker, that if we were ever to get close to this God of love, and by extension our own happiness, our sexualities had to be oppressed, repressed, and suppressed at any and every cost. What a lie. Surely the question for all of us is simply how to be human. For we know that to be born is to be human, but it is also to become human. And a woman or man become what they are open to, becoming ourselves in all the fullness of our personhood, psychologically, emotionally, sexually, intellectually, and spiritually, is the mark of personal existential meaning. Therefore, I suggest, as a first paradigm, either our sexuality or sexualities is a way of enabling or ennobling our humanity, or it is not. Either our sexuality takes us closer to God, the true self, or it alienates us from God. For as St. Bernard of Clairvaux says, no relation, any self-alienation is God alienation. The true self is God. Anyone or anything that would hurt or destroy that self, which others and we are created to be, image of love of God is not of God. Anyone or anything, on the other hand, that enables and empowers the true self to come into a woman's fullness or a man's fullness must be of God. For the human authenticity and the religious authenticity are one. It's not what I say about God that really matters, or how religious I am. But it is how I am as a human being, as a result of believing and hoping of this and in this God of sheer and utter love. To try to give to God what I don't have, that which we are not, trying to be straight when you're gay, or gay when you're straight, etc., etc., is to my mind pure blasphemy. What we are doing in such situations is basically saying to God, your LGBTQI or straight image that you created me to be in my essence is not good enough. Take it back. This kind of pathological behavior is encouraged and endorsed by the official line of the Vatican on women and homosexuality, and has destroyed the life in the souls of so many good people. The teaching that women are in fact unequal, that gay people are disordered in their nature and evil in their love, which is still the official catechism line, is pure pathology and is conduit to soul murder. The Vatican know they lie. They know we know they lie. Yet they continue to lie. And we know what Christ said about who is the father of lies. On one level, life to me seems to be about finding our ego, who we are, and letting it go, who we can become. Real life experience of death and resurrection. I have discovered this to be particularly true in the journeys I've been privileged to make with those living with AIDS. The mind may want to God that the heart understands. But if the heart understood God, the mind would reject it and give the heart a heart attack. For God is for the heart. And if your heart is right, your God is right. If your heart is wrong, your God is wrong. And our biblical foremothers and forefathers believed the heart was here, behind one's navel, solar plexus, the seat of all feelings. Women, as you know, are extraordinary in this way, that they are so in touch. They're not as head as men. They are of the heart. And it is women, I believe, will free the church. And that's what the men are so scared of. But for women, many times, and for LGBTQI people more often than not, the order of the heart is reversed. Everything and everyone from their formative years tell them that they are not equal to men. And in relationship to gay people, very often and most often, that they should not exist. And if we do exist, then at best, we are second class. Yes, we have come a long way, for which I am deeply grateful and appreciative in this land of my birth. But until parents start praying for a lesbian daughter or gay son, we haven't reached it. Because we automatically assume the offspring in the womb is going to be straight. Generally speaking. I believe every parent should have a gay daughter or son. Of course I hate this issue. The second paradigm I wish to make is that to be human is to be in relationship. Tangential to this, and very important in this, is the psychosexual fact that our sexualities are the seat of our relationality. Our sexualities are that apotheosis of power within all of us, which are instinctively attracted and attractive to life, to love, to freedom, to God. To find someone to love sexually, if one does not have the gift of celibacy, is to embrace in all its mystery, all its joy, all its pain, the Word made flesh, the human face of God. Because, as we know, we learn to love not by being told to love, but by being loved. As St. John has it, in this is love. Not that we love, but that we are loved. And that's the excitement of life. That you and I are loved with a love beyond all telling. That's our freedom. Yet, there is, I know, as an older man now, a loneliness in the heart of all of us that nothing or no one can overcome. This is what I like to call our God space. In fact, the fascination and bitterness of sexual experience lies precisely there. Sexual orgasm, for a woman or a man, or sexual ecstasy if you want, points to a total sharing that cannot be realized in this time called life. I think that is why the French call it le petit monde. And I believe that all sexual congress is a sacrament in love of the divine. It always points to something more and leaves us at the profoundest level dissatisfied. Secondly, sexuality, being the most powerful instinct in our humanity, has as much to do with how I celebrate Mass, appreciate art, enjoy music, pick flowers, as indeed the person you or I choose to love. I reiterate, and I think this is vital for us as Catholics, sexuality is the seat of our relationality. It cannot be, and should never be, as the Catholic Church so often does, and always does to sexual minorities, be reduced to genitality. The Catholic Church for gay people manufactures theological pornography. Spirituality is the essence or soul of all living things. And as you know, our spirit is at the very heart of what it is to be human beings. I believe that in their genesis, sexuality and spirituality are one. They are the alpha point from which we move and live and have our being. They are the same source of the one river that is split and divided at birth or very soon afterwards. And to my limited knowledge, this is sociocultural in order to control people, women in particular, and sexual minorities. And it is encouraged and endorsed by all organized religion. Hence the experience of most human beings that they cannot be sexual and spiritual. Thomas Merton, great mystic, American of the last century, says we are already one in our spirituality and sexuality. Their separateness is an illusion. If AIDS has taught me anything, it has taught all of us one lesson more than any other, that it is better to be whole than good. Being good is the stuff of religion, which is about control. It's good, it's bad, it's right, it's wrong. Whereas being whole is the work of spirituality, which is about wholeness, holiness, integrity, freedom, joy, and love. St. John of the Cross, another great mystic, a very personal favorite of mine, says, here on the mountaintop, there are no laws. There are no trodden paths. Where there is no love, put in love, and there you will find love. We find the path by walking it. It is, as Frost, the American poet says, the road less traveled. Because all of us live in a world that is not only erotophobic, there's lots of sex, but there is no sexualization of our humanity in love, or at least very little of it. The world is erotophobic, homophobic, and godphobic. A church where sexuality are seen as not only split, but in continuous and consistent conflict. I believe, through my life work, that sexuality and spirituality are the one energy. They are the same pure water of the uncreated life of God in all of us. This is one of the greatest gifts we have to offer our children and to our broken church, world, and society. That is the gift of an integrated sexuality and spirituality, as often experienced by those who have suffered HIV and AIDS. We are discovering again and anew that there is one source, one energy, one desire. Our sexualities, no matter what they are, is not a distraction from the spiritual. It is total, ecstatic self-surrender. As you know, Teresa of Avila, when she writes of her mystical experience, it is no different than a woman writing of her sexual orgasms. In fact, I gave a class many years ago and separated the girls in separate classrooms and asked them to write about their sexuality, and other women, I should say, depends how you define a girl and teenage, and others to write about their mystical experience, a mystical experience. And you couldn't tell the difference. The sacredness of sexuality, the holiness of sexuality, the mystery of sexuality speaks to the fact that we are one body and one spiritual experience. Here, God is found beyond God. The deeper we go into God in our spirituality, the more we understand our sexuality, relationality. The first conversion is the release through knowing that it is okay to be human and sexual. The second is to realize that through this we find our way into God. The third is coming out, wherein the personal becomes political, as you do in We Are Church. These conversions, which are a lifetime process of success and failure, may involve an exodus as personal and political as Moses and the people of Israel from Egypt. You will have to leave your family, quote unquote, your familiarity, your country, your mother's and father's house, for the land God will show you. This coming out, with or without a partner, in love, forces the soul to grow by a process of subtraction. All spirituality is based on truth. The truth of life experience. To be opened to God, the eternal lover, the one who does not know how not to love us, we must be ready to go into the desert, where the dark reveals God as mystery, as nothingness, as emptiness, as death sometimes, and as freedom, despair, and hope beyond hope. Here in this desert, we may pray God to rid us of God, as Meister Eckhart says. And we may go through a period of atheism. Agnosticism is probably a must for the true spiritual sojourner. But this is the holy road of purification. Everything falls apart. God is the darkness itself. For authentic faith takes us beyond religion, beyond security, casting our human anchor deep down into God, the only love that is. The true self is like a shy, wild animal. It comes out in the stillness, when we have given up all pretenses of control. The true self is God. We come then into our authentic sexuality, relationality, in pain. We struggle into the light and find the joy, because it is the touchstone of who we are, a point of nothingness, a point with no return, a point without illusion, the pure glory of God in us. We discover indeed that we in fact belong to the universe. Sexuality and spirituality become one. Joy and sorrow become one. Free of fear, we are one with the river. For this is a place of deep, deep surrender, to allow ourselves to be carried by the river into God. God comes into us, as it were, with the ancient monks of Mount Athos, we can say, the one being kissed by God becomes the kisser. This is the ultimate moment of conversion. We become God's lover. Our heart becomes her heart. We who were not worthy of love become love. As gay, women, men, lesbian, transgendered, bisexual, straight people, we remain part of our church, prophetically, in order to give witness to these truths. As Sally in the color purple has it, we may not find God in church, but we take God to church, or else we will never find her. Thank you for inviting me.